AI and rapid technology advancements, that India has to achieve, for India to achieve the true growth that we are envisaging, 50% of India cannot be left out. Right? And it's very heartening to see a few, 30% men in this panel to come and watch here. So I'm very excited to hear what the experts have to say as much as you do. Happy to introduce our esteemed panelists for the session. We have with us Nidhi Bhasin, the CEO, NASSCOM Foundation, a non-profit part of NASSCOM ecosystem, working to harness the power of technology to drive social impact through innovative solutions. Archna Vyas from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Archna oversees the advocacy and communication effort for two of the foundation's divisions, global growth and opportunities and gender equality. Kanta Singh, Deputy Representative, UN Women India, and she comes with 25 years of experience in the management of pro-women development programs. Aparajita Bharti, founding partner of TQ Hedge, a Delhi-based policy research and consulting firm and co-founder of YLAC, Young Leaders for Active Citizenship, which works with young people to increase their engagement in the democratic process. And this amazing all-women achievers leaders panel is moderated by Aditi Jha, Board Director and Country Head, Legal and Government Affairs, and the member of the leadership team at LinkedIn. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So in my job as the Public Policy Director at LinkedIn, I get the chance to think of the big changes that are coming our way with AI. And with these big changes, how can we build a more equitable world of work? I'm thrilled to be joined by four people I personally respect so deeply, especially on the topic of gender equity, and I think who are best placed to help us understand how we can close the gender divide in the age of AI. But before that, a quick framing of the issue. We're entering a new era. Jobs are going to change, and new jobs are emerging. This has happened in the past. With every round of technological disruption, it's not new. For thousands of years, we were in the agriculture and manufacturing economy, where hard physical skills were skills that were relevant. For the last few decades, we've been in sort of a knowledge economy, where our cognitive faculties are the skills in demand. And I think we might be moving to what we in LinkedIn are calling the relationship economy in the age of AI. And I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive. But as AI will make technology more evenly available, I think what is going to be critical are what we've called soft skills or people skills, like how do you communicate, how do you collaborate, how do you lead a team, what empathy do you have? And I think that bodes well. It's a good opportunity to close the gender divide. LinkedIn data shows that women have 28% higher share of soft skills, which is sort of going to be the more in demand in the relationship economy. But there is work to be done. Every year, LinkedIn has partnered with World Economic Forum that publishes the Global Gender Gap Report. And what this year's Global Gender Gap Report shows is that India is 5th from the bottom when it comes to economic participation. Another disconcerting trend that we are seeing through this data is that we're seeing a reversal of women being hired into leadership roles. While there has been incremental growth of women being hired into leadership from 16.6% in 2016, grew to about 18.7% in 2023, we are now seeing a reversal where this percentage has dipped to 18.3% in 2024. So we're noticing a reversal of the gains that have been made. What this data set also shows us is that at entry level, women comprise about 28.7% of the Indian workforce. By the time we get to the manager level, it's 18.5%. By the time we get to C-suite, it's 15.3%. And this is not the only problem that we have to deal with. Our LinkedIn data also shows that women are likely to be in jobs that are disrupted by AI and less likely to be in jobs that get augmented by AI. What that means is that in jobs that are most vulnerable to AI doing more and more of the tasks, women are overrepresented. Women make up 57% of these jobs, while men make up only 43% of these jobs. So it's a little bit like a tale of two cities. Is it the best of time, the worst of time? Is it the spring of hope? Is it the winter of despair? Yeah, so how do we, in a focused and deliberate manner, we have the opportunity, we have the time right now, so how do we, in a focused and deliberate manner, transition to the new economy in a way that's gender equitable? And I'm going to start with just opening remarks, no questions. But just go around the room. All of you are experts, and you work day in, day out on these issues. So what are your initial thoughts? I'll start with you, Nidhi.
Thanks, Aditi. The privilege of sitting right next to you, right? Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And of course, we're talking about a topic which is close to most of us sitting in this room, and that's why we're all sitting here. We are talking about a country where women are only contributing 18% to the GDP, whereas we are 48% of the population. Of course, there's data. McKinsey report says that if there are efforts made to make women inclusive of the economy, we will add $770 billion US by 2025, which is just a year down the line, right? But of course, there's a huge gap. Aditi's already shared the gender report where we rank globally. If you really look at it, we are talking about, of course, I do come from the tech industry since I'm a part of NASCOM Foundation. Of course, it's a better picture, more positive picture in the tech industry compared to all the other industries. But at the same time, we are talking about, empowering the women. And this topic of AI is not about only today. We need to address it from also tomorrow point of view. And I would like to probably, Aditi, you spoke about basically women in leadership, right? But I'd like to take your attention a little bit more towards the last mile. We are talking about a country where more than 60% of the population stays in rural areas. Again, 48% of the women out of this are in the rural area. And if you really look at it, I think I was doing my maths, and we are talking about addressing 40 billion women today who are staying in rural areas. So we can talk about, yes, women in leadership. Most of us come from a very, I would in this context say, a privileged background, right? We've got our opportunities, we've actually grown, we have the ecosystem, not that women in urban areas don't struggle. But we're talking about also the large population which lives in the rural areas. And if I really look at it, what we need to address is not what is meant for today, but what is meant for the next few years. We are talking about a Viksit Bharat, we are talking about all of that. But are we making an effort to make sure that the digital gap, which is at the last mile, it actually doesn't widen even further? And that's what we need to see, that what is the role of AI in ensuring that girls in the school are not left behind. Women who are the mothers, they understand AI. Are we making an effort to ensure that while we're making them digitally literate, we start making them also understand that how AI will impact their life? So AI will, of course, help us in better education. It can help us in better healthcare for women, which means a healthier woman means a healthier mother, to means a healthier girl child, probably. And so if I do feel that while we are addressing this whole leaky pipeline in the industry, we also need to address, along with that, how do we really address the need at the last mile? How do we ensure that women are not further left behind? Because at the pace that AI is growing and impacting, this gap is going to be really, really wider right now. So I think the conversation has to be, what do we do now to ensure that in the next 20 years, women are actually an equal partner in the growth? Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks, that's a great point you make, that the gap shouldn't become a chasm. Kanta ji.
Ji, Aditi ji, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let me start with hope. I think it's a great thing that we are talking about technology, we are talking about women. And I see this trend growing every event that we have anywhere in the world. There is discussion on women. This wasn't the case 10 years back. There used to be very few conferences for women. There used to be very few events focusing on women. Even if you look at Charcha, I think things have changed over a period of time now in the last couple of years. So we are very happy about that. Secondly, as far as technology is concerned, at least there's not one disadvantage that I can point out other than the biases that will come. One, till now we were kept out of many fields saying, this is finance, this is not women's job. This is rocket science, this is not women's job, right? And this is none of that. Technology is a great enabler and a great leveler for women. If given the right opportunities, women can benefit equally as men can. Also, it's not backbreaking. You don't have to lift weight. So when you're talking about different kinds of skills and jobs being obsolete, there are new kinds of jobs coming. And that means those jobs could be taken up by women as much as they can be taken up by men. So I see great opportunity here. Some of the critical skills to my mind beyond technology are going to be collaboration. The soft skill that you're talking about, communication, which women are great at. Third is community. Unless we start talking about community, I think in the corporate language they talk about ESG, I'm saying 3 C's. So that means communication, which women can really leverage. And second is collaboration, which women are naturally good at. And third is thinking about communities, because when women thrive, they don't thrive alone. The communities thrive. So to me, this is a great time to be born a woman. And why I say that is that now the opportunities may come a little slower, but technology is fast-tracking the pace at which development is reaching everyone, not only just women, but also in rural areas. Any girl who has learned how to use a smartphone, difficult to control her, right? So she'll become a leader. So there is gap. I'm not saying everything is looking great, but the pace will be much faster now. And I'm very hopeful that with concerted efforts from all sides, government, private sector, civil society organizations, little more investment in making women tech savvy will go a long way. And should I say that 20 years from now, women will be much ahead of men. I'm sorry to say that, and that's my hope. But I'm also hoping that women will also be in leadership positions. And when there'll be more women in leadership, they'll bring more women into technology. So thank you.
So Kanta ji is clearly on the spring of hope side. Archna.
Yeah, thank you. And I share my optimism with Kanta and also with Nidhi in terms of her framing of the challenges. So, so 2 or 3 points. One is, I think data and digital is foundational for any economy, for growing economies. It's super important, and within that, definitely the focus that has been on digital public infrastructure, which was also been, elevated in India's G20, but also in Brazil's G20. I think the foundational layer of digital and that too as a public infrastructure is super important, because it has a huge impact on women's inclusion in across sectors. The second thing that I would say is also the potential of AI is definitely promising, because while the fact that a lot of the innovation in technology, especially in AI, is being driven by global firms, mostly in global north, countries like India and Singapore have been fantastic in adoption of AI. So there is definite promise. There will be concerns in terms of inclusivity, especially when countries talk about promise of digital access. It is reality that digital access does not mean that the gender gaps are closing, because it can lead to heightened gender gaps. So in the case of India, even from 2015 to now, or 2023, the access to mobile technology has increased from 46% to about 54%. The gender gaps have increased, right? So one has to think about intentionality, inclusivity, especially when you're thinking about advancement of technology, because it's not necessary that access will lead to adoption. It can lead to gender gaps, and then there can be some impediments as well that one has to think about very crucially, very critically, right from the start. And I'm sure that the panel will bring that out. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Archna. Aparajita.
Thanks, everyone. I mean, you've covered a lot. It's always hard to be the last speaker. But I think just going back to your point, Aditi, when you said that it's the best of times and it's the worst of times, I do really think that that's the case in policy spaces. You know, in all the meetings that we have been, if you've seen the economic survey of India, there is a lot of anxiety about what changes will happen in the labor market because of AI. And women, anyway, we know are lagging behind. We only have 37% women in the workforce. And I think to understand better how women's work is getting impacted by AI, I think we need more data. And I know that you quoted a lot of data from LinkedIn, but I do think that there needs to be a sectoral approach to this data as well. Women already are concentrated in a few sectors. So for example, in textiles, healthcare, education, agriculture, I think when we are sitting in some government meetings, there's either too much jubilation on how AI will completely change the sector, or there's too much panic that, you know, it will just take away all the jobs. But AI is actually being deployed very differently in all sectors. For example, in education, you know, I've spoken to a few teachers. We do a lot of work with teachers in Vilac. It's not taking away the delivery of their job still. I mean, right now it's not happening. What is changing is they are making their curriculum plans. So it's job enhancement. They are setting their question papers using AI. That's job enhancement. Similarly, however, in say, you know, IT, ITES, maybe some basic coding jobs are something that are getting, you know, replaced by AI as well. So I think it's so important to study in real time how AI is impacting the industries where women are concentrated. Yeah. In textiles, for example, will they take away some of the manual labor that women are doing? Then do they need to be graduated to design of this thing? That is something that we need more information on, people who work in the policy space. And then I think the industry and government really has to collaborate to figure out that given all these changes, how do we graduate women, as you were saying, they are more at risk because they are doing low skill jobs to higher skill jobs and taking advantage of the 3 C's that they already have. You know, and they are able to take advantage of this revolution.
No, that's a great point, and I'll start with you now, not keep you as the last speaker. And just building on what you said. So, how do you think? You know, are there specific examples or specific strategies on how the entire ecosystem, and not just like industry or not just policymakers, how can AI or Gen AI be leveraged to enhance, you know, women's productivity? You gave a couple of examples, and participation in the workforce. And how can we transition? How can we use this as a hook or a lever to transition women into more of these high-skilled jobs and higher remunerative jobs? And do you see like any like patent challenges in doing that?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenge is the digital divide. I think everybody spoke about it, and there's a real risk that it gets heightened. You know, 30% women in India, according to NFHS data, have never used the internet. And we are talking about using AI here, right? So that's like step ahead of that. However, I do think that, you know, there will be an inflection point. Technology, of course, you know, the government is really investing in it. There will be an inflection point when we will have technology in everybody's hands. I think what is really important is to have the ability to learn, right? So I think we did a lot of work on, for example, apprenticeships for women. We've done a lot of work on gender in STEM. One thing that keeps coming up again and again when it comes to skilling is it's not only important to impart the skills that are relevant now, but impart the skills to be able to upskill yourself whenever there is a shift in technology. And I think with AI, that's going to be an accelerated this thing. So I think when it comes to, say, ITIs or government's own skilling programs, I think one of the focus now is shifting to soft skills. And one of the main soft skills is how to inculcate this idea of lifelong learning. And the second part that I just want to say is that women MSMEs have a big role to play in adoption of AI. Yesterday, Zomato CEO actually had posted on Twitter that they will not allow any AI generated food images on Zomato. So there was a lot of discussion under that, and because I was preparing for panel, I spent half an hour scrolling through it. But it was so interesting. A lot of people said that already there was a chasm between, say, five-star restaurants who would be putting like all kind of very professional photographs and MSMEs who actually used to take pictures from their phones. So AI is that leveler here, which is actually helping them. Now you will be on different sides of this debate, right? As customers, whether you want AI generated images or not. But the fact that women MSMEs and with AI now basically integrated into WhatsApp also, right? Women MSMEs are already starting to experiment with it. I think for them, the ability to create high quality content, the ability, English in India is still very much a marker of social mobility. So, I mean, when we were recruiting for some admin, etc. roles, now people who are not very good with English, we just tell them, please use, chat GPT and make your email better. That's not that, entry barrier has been struck down. So I think there needs to be a concerted effort to work with women MSMEs so that they adopt AI to be able to cross some of the bridges that earlier they were not able to.
That's fantastic. So we're moving beyond job seeking to actually job creation as well. And Kantaji, I'd love to come to you on that. I know UN Women has been doing a lot of phenomenal work on closing the gender digital divide, but it's also helping women entrepreneurs, especially in developing economies. So what role do you think AI tech can play in accelerating progress on that front as well?
It can play a big role. And women, where we are working with, the most marginalized women in some of the remotest areas of the country. We have seen women using technology to help their businesses. Yesterday, we were talking to a group of women, 6 young women. I swear I wasn't like that when I was 20. I had no idea what they were talking about. So smart, with the training of, say, 1 year or 1.5 years, total under 20 years, and the girls were so clear about what they want. Also exposure, your dreams are as big as the exposure. I think if you see women looking at internet, at a phone, and seeing women in Sweden are doing this, women in America are doing this, I think it also enhances their own self of aspirations. I think that's very, very important. Women employing other women. I think that's another thing that we need to start talking about. So when we are creating jobs, what kind of jobs these are? Are these level playing places? Also safety at workplace. I'm hoping, and I'm not giving this responsibility only to women, but it's everybody's responsibility to create safe working spaces, whether these are online safety things or in person. It's very, very critical that when women face barriers in terms of violence, either kind of violence, public spaces, private spaces, or online, it will also deter many other women to enter that space. So one bad incident impacts many, many women. Whereas in case of a man, if the incident happens, it is only happening to a man. If one girl drops out of school because of something happened, 5 girls drop out. So we need to also keep putting safeguards in place.
That's right.
And I think removing those couple of things, and violence is not just a small thing, it's a huge thing. And also investing in young women's education at the right time, giving them right kind of skills, whether then they become entrepreneurs or they get into jobs. I think the improvement will be much faster because they are really hungry for success. Nobody has, a girl was telling us yesterday that nobody even expected anything from me. The expectations are so low that she'll get married. That's it. And that has been made central point of her life. And that's where we need to move away from.
That's right.
And I think young girls are realizing that they are wonderful. it was really heartwarming yesterday to interact with these women. So that is what keeps giving me hope that this is a great place to get women into technology, get women into any space now that they want. There's not even a single sector where girls are not there today.
Thank you for sharing. Archna, on a related topic, I know Gates Foundation has been investing a lot in research in this area, and I know you're also supporting organizations such as Karya, which I think is a great example of how benefits of AI can be leveraged by women in non-urban areas, as well as those who are at slightly lower levels of education and skills. Can you talk a little bit more about about your experiences?
Yeah, sure, and thanks a lot for that question. So we actually have partnered with Microsoft Research, working with Karya, amazing non-profit organization in Karnataka. One project, I mean, they're doing various projects with various other and fantastic work that they're doing with rural populations, but our project really focused on working with women in rural areas so that we could, the ultimate output that we wanted was a chatbot that can help poor people understand much better issues of healthcare, sanitation, agriculture, banking, livelihoods. So those are the areas that Gates Foundation works in. So we wanted to create a chatbot that can reach out. People can ask questions, and this chatbot can help answer those questions. But what we realized was, and this was obviously going to be enabled by AI because it's a chatbot. But what we realized was that, hey, AI at this point in time is not necessarily, it's not unbiased, right? Because the way the AI has been trained is largely English-speaking content and generated by a lot of men rather than women, because we've heard about gender gaps, access of digital by women, and therefore AI needed to be trained in terms of how can we unbias the AI. So Karya does fantastic work with rural population. So we gave them about 5 languages in India: Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, Telugu, and Malayalam. About 500,000 content pieces, which means 100,000 per content pieces, which would reach about 1 million of population in India. And their role was really about looking at content and annotating that for gender bias. So sentences that would be related to areas that we were speaking about, how can they look at content, they can generate voice-enabled content as well, but at the same time point out the bias in those sentences. So simple examples, say a teacher, right? Teacher in Hindi is translated as adhyapak, whereas they said teacher. They understand teacher, not adhyapak. Wife as grihani, whereas wife in Hindi is bahu, right? So the objective was actually to de-bias content that our system uses now so that it can be gender neutral. So this is the kind of work that Karya has done for us. And we are also working with other fantastic partners in terms of unbiasing, debiasing the language that current models have generated or being generated on AI. But I will the impact that this work has had. One is that this was with 30,000 women, the way what we've realized on the top of this, okay, let's just do an RCT as well. There was an RCT done by JPAL. This is like traditional work that Gates Foundation does because we love data and insights. We realized that women, as a result of the work that they did with Karya, is the fact that they not only got empowered, economically empowered, they loved the flexibility of doing this work on AI and use of technology that was helping them generate extra employment for themselves. So not only did they own, they created content, they were participating and generating economic employment for themselves, at the same time doing it at flexible hours that they wanted to, right? So this is the power that AI can actually generate. And normally digital gaps are because of, literacy barriers. They are also because of, structural barriers, safety norms that others have spoken about. But voice-enabled AI can really fuel economic empowerment, going past the barrier of what literacy brings in. So it's been a fantastic project that the foundation has been working on. Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing, Archna. Nidhi, your turn. A question in two parts. So I was going through the latest report that NASCOM Foundation has published on the gender divide and AI. Would love to hear your insights on those. And what I'm looking for is, I'll give you a LinkedIn data hook here. As per LinkedIn data shows that women AI talent has grown from 19% about in 2016 to 25.6% in 2023. Now, it still shows that 3/4 of all AI talent is still male, but we're beginning to see some green shoots of growth here. So going back to to this fantastic report that you've published, as well as some of the work that you're doing with young girls in tier 2 and 3 towns, is early exposure to technology helpful in retaining more women, more girls in tech and AI, and then maybe hoping that they move up the leadership rungs as well?
Sure. So this report was done by actually NASCOM and BCG, and it was recently released. So one of the, I think the interesting facts that I would want to highlight out here is that while it was talking about similar data as what Aditi has already shared about how many women are a part of the workforce in the tech industry and how many are at the leadership level, so it's very similar data. But what was a very interesting part of it was that it said that out of all the women that were interviewed, 45% actually said that they had a huge openness to learning and upskilling themselves in AI, and how that has helping them to actually go up the ladder. And I think that's coming from the industry, and 45% women is not a small number. I think I will want to link it to what we actually do at NASCOM Foundation when it comes to skilling. I would say girls who come from less privileged backgrounds. And while we've been doing a lot of skilling work with them in terms of skilling, employability, all of that, recently we also launched a couple of programs around skilling them in the area of AI. What was fascinating is very similar to the data that we got from the NASCOM BCG report, the openness of the women, I would say young girls, either doing a BSc course or doing a BTech course, where they were probably studying in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, their openness that I want to upskill myself in AI was so fascinating, because we all have spoken here about a certain support in terms of protection, infrastructure support, all of that. For this particular program that we piloted in Noida, we actually saw women coming from Meerut, women coming from Roorkee, Dehradun, and these are young girls from conservative families, how they actually broke certain social norms, how they actually took PG accommodations in a place like Noida. Of course, there was support which we provided them, but that overall thinking, and within a period of 3 months upskilling course, most of them have got a decent employment. When I say decent, it means probably in the bracket of about 5 or 6 lakhs per annum to start with. And these are girls coming from less privileged backgrounds. So it's all about opportunities. It's all about actually giving them the right guidance, giving them the right kind of means to achieve their dreams. So also within this period, it was not only about giving them the technical skilling, it's a lot about soft skills, because AI is anyway a lot about soft skills, right? And to be a part of the industry and the workforce, to clear those interviews, right? And within that, we used various AI mediums, platforms to actually help them to maybe improve their communication skills, all the skills put together. But Aditi, I'll also just take one more minute to add we are talking about a lack of women in mid-management and senior management. We do a program which we call as W Square RT, which is basically, we've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now. And this is an upskilling, very unique program, an upskilling program for women in the workforce. And basically, this is by nomination from their sponsor or their manager and all of that. And it's a 1-year-long program. And we did a kind of a dipstick. And out of the 4 or 5 cohorts that we have upskilled, and these are people coming from all the large and mid-sized tech companies, more than 60% of women said that because of this opportunity, they actually have stayed back in the workforce. And these are women with 5 to 7 years of experience, which basically proves, and this would be also linked to AI, because AI anyway, it means, and now we are also doing special courses in AI around it, upskilling in AI for women. It just means that what is needed is that hand-holding, that mentoring, somebody to kind of push them, somebody to guide them, and giving them that flexibility that we all spoke about, right? That they can actually move forward, bridge this gap, and continue. So we do feel that both upskilling them at an early stage, skilling them, making them employable, introducing them to programs which may be otherwise very expensive for them, and also upskilling while they are a part of the workforce are both equally important.
That's a fantastic point you made there, Nidhi. Aparajita, you spoke a little bit about that we need better quality data to be able to make some of these judgments and assessments. So particularly, what do you think? You work very closely with policymakers. What do you think? What kind of research or data gathering we should be doing on what kind of skills will be needed by women to harness the benefits of AI? What skills you think are going to become redundant, and therefore what jobs are going to be redundant? And to Nidhi's point, I think there needs to be concerted effort on skilling new entrants to the workforce, as well as women who are more likely to be impacted by AI job disruption.
Got it. So Aditi, I just want to divide women and AI in 2 things. One is on the supply side, and one is on the women who are using AI to do their jobs. So I think on supply side, Archna spoke about the Karya model, and that's at the basic, the starting point of building AI models. But then across the value chain, you have to see where women are. Now we know that women have traditionally lagged behind in STEM, and within STEM, they have specifically lagged behind in engineering roles. And even though now we had done a report with iWage, in fact, on women in STEM, so we had seen there are about 42% women in educational institutes. But when you look at engineering roles and core STEM jobs, then it drops to somewhere around 25%. Now, we actually did a roundtable, and we had a lot of women who were scientists, who were engineers, who were training at IIT Delhi. A lot of people from the industry as well. And some very interesting points came out, which I think now we have an opportunity to correct, because AI is new for everyone. It's not just new for women, right? And I think that gives us an opportunity to reimagine the STEM ecosystem itself. So some of the interesting things they pointed out is, for example, a lot of these people have postdoc fellowships, etc. Or there would be research, scholarships that would be given out. Now they artificially have a age limit of say 30 or 35. Now we know that a lot of women actually drop out temporarily during that period of time from workforce because they have childbearing, etc. Why have that? Why have that age limit which keeps women out? Because it was designed by men at some point, right? It was such a simple thing. Similarly, I think in many institutes, there's no gender infrastructure. So if there is going to be focus on getting women embedded in that, value chain, I think we need to look at what's happening in schools, what's happening in colleges, what happens when people are doing PhD, what happens when they've already done PhD and they have some skills to get into AI, building AI, Because also, like in India, government is investing heavily in AI mission. So there are going to be opportunities to be involved in building AI for India. So we need to have women there from get-go. We cannot play catch-up like last few waves of technology. So that's on the supply side. On the demand side, as I did mention, we have to take a sectoral approach, and I think industry ultimately knows exactly where AI is being deployed. Government does not have a way to know. For example, one of my best friends is an IVF specialist. So he was telling me that how AI is actually getting used to kind of predict which sorry, my biology is a little weak, but which, embryos are going to be viable, most probably. And that is increasing the rate of success of, say, IVF treatments, right? Now, this is such specific knowledge, this only a practitioner can tell you. And is it eliminating a job or is it just making it better? That also that practitioner can tell you. So I do think we already have an infrastructure, like sector skill councils are there, industry bodies like NASSCOM are there, which are specialized, which are working on specific industries. CI, FICCI, all of them have specific committees for specific sectors. There needs to be a lot more, discussion convening for those sector-specific committees, and also surveys to understand how companies are actually deploying AI, because it's happening real time, it's happening on the go. Sometimes it's not very well planned also. So it's very organic activity, but we need to have a better understanding of what that activity looks like.
Well, thanks. That's fantastic. I'll stay with you, Prashta. A follow-on question. So I think one of the unique things about the AI disruption is that I think for the first time it's affecting white-collar workers. Traditionally, a lot of the disruptions that have happened in the past have been more towards blue-collar and grey-collar workers. And within white-collar workers, it's people sort of on the lower level of remuneration and skills whose jobs will get disrupted. And I think that's likely why, it's more, 57% of women's jobs will get disrupted, only 43% of those jobs are held by men. So do you think that, this initiative that you're saying that we all practitioners need to look at their jobs, what can we do to ensure that this inequity that is there right now on the disruption bit, how do we as policy plus government plus industry ensure that this disruption doesn't affect women inequitably?
Wow, I think it's a $1 billion question. I would be a
Possibly.
billionaire if I knew the answer to this. But I think one of the first thing that is a good thing, and as Kanta ji is also saying, I think we are recognizing that there is an inequitable distribution. With some of the other things, unfortunately, we've been too late to even recognize that, this is an inequitable problem. I think the second thing is, how do you get, this cohort who's getting affected to the next thing, that is the opportunity, faster? And while we've, I think, all spoken about skilling, etc., I think there is a role for incentives to play there as well. Now, whether those incentives are targeted towards, say, education institutions, or are they targeted towards industry, specific industries where women are concentrated, I think that is a very interesting problem for policymakers to solve right now. And TQH, for example, has been working with a few states which are now making their, Vision 2047. I think all states are making. Some states have included a chapter on women's economic empowerment in that. And there, it's very encouraging to see that AI is already kind of featuring. So states do know. And I do want to say, Aditi, that right now it's white collar, but very soon it will be blue collar as well. It's about matching mechanics of, the robotic side has to start talking to this AI side more, and there will be more jobs which would change radically in the next 20 years. So they are already thinking about it. I think policymakers are already aware. And I think what they are now thinking is that how do they graduate this cohort to the next thing, and they are baking in incentives into their industrial policy as well, which I think is really important, because that's where a lot of action around this will happen.
Thank you. You want to add something to it, Archna? Yeah.
2 points. One is that it's great that AI is being elevated. Governments are thinking about AI policies. But again, I would say that having access to technology does not mean that it's going to be equitable. Take the example when years back when plow was invented, right? Green revolution, great productivity, great impact in terms of agriculture, but it led to division of roles, right? Because you needed broad shoulders, you needed strength. So plow was really designed for men. Whereas women, as a result, were relegated, and that got institutionalized, the kind of roles that they would play on an agricultural field. So not necessarily technology is going to be equitable. As governments are now, we are all looking towards UNGA, the fact that there is a global digital compact that's going to be discussed, and within that, there is going to be focus on AI as well. As governments think about AI, they need to think about gender intentionality, because it's not going to be equal, it's not going to be equitable. So it's really important that we bring in one gender, and the second thing is the impact that the communities will have of AI front and center. Communities will have, so how do you bring those insights into policy making? Yeah. The governments will have to think voice of communities back into policy making, and the voice of women as well as other gender within policy making, because as it is getting elevated for equity, it is just that you need to have that openness to be able to think through community as well as gender voices. Thanks.
Thanks, Archna. Kanta, I know you're making notes, but but on the question of policy making, look, you work very closely with governments, you work at the multilateral. From a policy making perspective, from a policy making lever, what should policymakers be thinking of or doing to ensure, as what Archana is saying, that existing inequities don't get exacerbated and there is more acceleration in progress in closing the divide?
I think government is as confused as all of us are. That's true. They are coming from us. Either they are overwhelmed with what is happening around them, or they don't know the impact of, say, technology like AI that's going to happen in the coming years. Government is always slower than private sector in general in taking up things, introducing it in the institutions or institutionalizing the process. Government has a major role, which is legislating it if required, policy making regulations. So government plays as a regulatory authority and not so much as implementer to begin with. So I think that is, government is now getting used to this idea of having AI as major part of the work. Till now all of us were in denial mode. Like many other things, this will also come and go. Now it is here to stay. It's going to change things for all of us, and probably for a longer period of time. New ways of things new ways of doing things will come, but I think this is here to stay. And government is struggling with those things. You will still find in a government ITI where teachers don't want to change the course of dress designing or food production or stenography. Do you hear in 2021, girls in ITIs, in government ITIs, are still studying stenography? So how do you think that the change is going to be as fast as we want it to be? Because teachers are afraid of losing their jobs, and you can't blame them. They have been earning their livelihood through that. So I think what government needs right now is correct data. And that's a big casualty, because you don't know which data is correct. If NASCOM says something else, somebody else says something else, World Bank says something else, UN says something. And if you torture data enough, I think it can confess to anything. So you have to start having real-time data using AI, so that you start making policy and guidelines using that data. But I think there are going to be biases like any other field. There are going to be biases here as well. And jobs related to women where there's more drudgery are going to be the least important in terms of innovations, in terms of using AI. And मैं हरियाणा से आती हूँ, So वो हम अभी भी गोबर सर पे वैसे ही डाल रहे हैं जैसे पहले डालते थे, right? Because nobody has paid attention to doing something about removing those drudgeries. So I think we need to also start drawing attention of people, innovators, also companies, to start looking at women's specific needs, either in terms of learning, removing their drudgeries, or also enabling them to take up or use or leverage the new opportunities that exist.
Okay, we have 90 seconds left. 90 seconds left. Closing thoughts. Two parts to this question. One, do you still think it's a winter of despair or a spring of hope? And second is, depending where on the spectrum you are, what are some actionable recommendations that you have from, from what you're seeing, from what your perspective is, on which stakeholders should be doing what, whether it's policy making, government, industry, academic institutions? Who do you think should be making significant changes? I'll start with Archna.
Okay. Okay. So yes, definitely I'm sitting on the side of optimism rather than pessimism, because I think technology has huge advantages as well. I had laid out some caution before in terms of how, one is that there's a role for everybody to play, right? There's a role for policymakers, of course, as they're thinking through their digital as well as AI policies. They need to make sure that they're going to be equitable and they advance everybody equally. That's a fundamental belief that Gates Foundation, of our foundation, but also how we exist within the world. The second thing that I would say is the corporates as well as academia, data and insights are going to be hugely imparting as you're thinking through these policies, because again, they have to be inclusive. So who's holding the truth? I think people like us, people like Kanta, NASCOM Foundation, Aparajita, who work with governments, who work with corporates as well as within the development sector, that we're bringing truth as we are experiencing technology advancement. There is also a role for the technology organizations themselves. Unfortunately, they have a huge role to play because they are the ones who own technology. They have their own policies, and therefore their policies need to be unbiased as well as inclusive. They need to be diverse. They need to get in context of populations that they don't know. So there's a huge role that they have to play. Thanks.
Thank you. Very quickly, Nidhi.
Very quickly, okay. But I'll just take 1 second, because what Kanta was saying earlier, I think for the first time I do feel that the pace at which the government is addressing the AI problem is actually faster than anything else that I've seen in the past, right?
Agree.
So I think the way that we've also been approached by a couple of state departments to say come and upskill our teams, right? So I think that's again talks about the intention that they're wanting to understand this better. But from what I started at the beginning, I would just like to end with that, is that when we're trying to look at this whole issue around AI and women, we need to address all segments. We need to address the women at the last mile, making sure what Archana was saying, the access part of it, that's what we do. We make sure that people are, the first step is digital literacy, ensuring that girls are skilled enough, ensuring that the leadership is skilled enough, women in the industry are skilled enough. And I think it's about everybody has a role to play out here. I don't think any of us, especially in the situation that we are, it cannot be the industry, it cannot be the civil society, it cannot be the social impact sector, it cannot be the government alone. It of course needs the intention, and it needs huge amount of funds to be able to actually make that difference, so that there is, we are addressing everything right from the moment that the child is born to a woman who becomes independent. We need to address everything out there. Otherwise, I think women will continue to be left behind.
Aparajita.
One of the best things, the best way to learn something is by doing it. The good news is, I think government is very excited about how AI can be used for governance. So many IAS officers I've met in the past few months, everybody has the most interesting use case. For example, one of the IAS officers told me that, we make this Gram Panchayat plan, And obviously, they really struggle with it because they are not very good with it, like at the last mile. So they were like, आप एक AI tool बना दीजिए जिसमें वो हमसे question पूछे. We tell them, this was somebody in Ministry of Panchayati Raj, we tell them this is what we want, and it generates a templatized, plan for the Gram Panchayat. Now this is totally doable, right? This is totally doable. Similarly, I think for ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, many states already know that their manuals run into like hundreds of pages. So obviously they don't know on the top of their head if somebody asks them that what needs to be done. So they are trying to, train chatbots so that they get instant answers that if there is a case, something is presented. Now, when AI is getting deployed in governance, I think that's a great opportunity for industry and government to work together. Be very honest about it, because when you deploy technology in governance, that is the real stress test, right? Because citizens know what rights they are entitled to. They will hold you accountable. They will hold the AI, tool accountable as well. And so I think that's a very fertile ground for, India to really take on AI, really stress test it. We have the population scale anyway that nobody has. So I think that's a real opportunity that I see for both industry and government to work together. And the second thing is, I do think we need more honest dialogues between industry and government to say what is the job description. I think because there is lack of data, there is so much more panic. Maybe it's overstated, maybe it's understated in some sectors. So I think that is very important, because otherwise we are just, talking about everything together. Whereas even though AI is a layer on everything, it is impacting everything quite differently.
Absolutely. Kanta ji, last word.
Quickly, very quickly, okay. I think it is everybody's concern. Private sector needs workforce, and they need an inclusive workforce. So it's very much in their interest to train both men and women and girls and boys from the very beginning. So investment is required there, and I think that's the key to it. Government, from two perspectives, I think e-governance has proved that it could be a very useful way to reach out to the last mile, particularly say DBT and many other measures that government has taken, and I think that has worked fantastically well in the country, and government is very upbeat about it. Many countries I see, we facilitate South-South collaboration, and many countries come and see here how we conduct elections, how we do e-governance mechanisms, and absolutely. I think women, if we put the safety measures in place, it's going to be very beneficial for women, without which it can also be a big nuisance in women's lives. Last one is the language. I think when we are talking about AI, we need to think about what language, what biases we are still bringing in AI that we were also using otherwise. I think it's very important. When Sundar Pichai launched the assistant, I remember writing to him back immediately saying, why are you asking, even in AI space, asking a woman to fix your haircut? She said, he named something, he said, book my haircut, something. And I said, you could use a man also to do the same thing, right? And I did get a response from him that the same day when he launched it. So we need to be conscious of what kind of biases we are bringing in the AI space also, which don't deprive women of the rightful space that they deserve. It's a matter of human talent. If we don't use 100% of the talent pool from the world, we are going to be as good as we are now. So we need to expedite the process, but using inclusive policies, and not just men and women, every kind of human species that we have, I think and it could be really a boon for disabled people or differently abled people. I think we need to think about that.
You have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I come from the disability sector. So my question is, so we live in a male-dominated society, and I strongly believe there's only so much you can do, like women wanting jobs. There's also from the top down, right? So that's policymakers. So how do you think in terms of making the job opportunities available for women who are right now marginalized, how do you think policymakers in particular can make that happen? Because coming from another marginalized community, I see that is the major gap, right? You see policymakers, they all are men, right? Or in my case, they all are able-bodied, right? If you want to make policies for someone, you have to understand where they're coming from, which is not always true if you're male, right? So that's my question.
Who wants to take that question?
I can just try to, and Nidhi probably would be the better person, but I was just thinking, as far as government is concerned, it has reservation policies for differently abled people. Government jobs, 3% jobs are for different kind of disabilities, and you have seen IAS officers to every sector or every segment of employees, government employs that. I think technology could be a great enabler for people with disabilities, because there are different kinds of technologies, voice technology to AI, to many other things that could be done. I'm thinking, and a friend of mine runs call centers only for disabled people and all kinds of disabled. She has opened her 5th center now, and government is promoting her work. And Meera Shenoy, I don't know if you know, Meera Shenoy runs employment centers only for disabled people. I think there's a greater awareness amongst policymakers as well as other actors to think about, again, saying talent pool. Not thinking of disability or anything else, but taking this as a talent pool. You may bring unique qualities that I may not have, which I'm saying able-bodied, but you may be better able-minded than I am.
Thank you, Kantaji. So we have some. Yeah, we have some questions from the audience here, and we'll see if how quickly we can get through them. Nidhi, this one's for you. What is NASSCOM doing to feed AI systems with clean, unbiased data relevant to India, especially from language, Hindi vernacular perspective?
I can talk for NASSCOM Foundation since I represent the foundation, but at the same time, NASSCOM is working very, very closely with the government to ensure that, in terms of when government is looking at anything to do with AI, there is complete understanding and it's integrated in whatever they're trying to deploy out there. But from a foundation point of view, I can say that actually, since we work a lot at the last mile, and we've been doing a lot of work with Niti Aayog in the aspirational districts and now the aspirational blocks. We are ensuring that we are creating what we are saying is AI fluency content. I don't think anybody has till now any AI fluency content for the people at the last mile. And of course, it's not been easy. To get somebody to do it also has taken us 6 months. So I think that's what we are trying to do, that to ensure that it's very contextual. It's not something that we are building content which is meant for urban areas and then which has all the language barriers, all the other issues, and then taking it to the rural areas. So we are making sure that what we are saying is how people understand AI and how they integrate AI in their lives, whether it's women, it's farmers, it's children, it's youth. It is, the content is made in their context. So it's usable and more impactful for them. I hope that answers the questions, yeah.
We're on time. There are a couple of other questions, but maybe we can find the speakers after the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi, and all the panelists. I think the best part of a panel discussion is that it gives a great hope that the future is going to be more empowering for women, and it's opened a lot of questions to the best aim of the Charcha, saying how do we increase safety for women, how do we have sectoral level data, how do we unbias AI, and how do we bridge the access gap, how do we bring about gender intentionalities, and many, many more. And all of these continue to have these discussions. Aditi, may I request you to just honor all the panelists? And as Aditi is continuing, so we will be baking after this for lunch. The clouds have been very kind to us. We thought we will have so there's a networking opportunity just outside there, and it's not raining. The lobby has the lunch. And we will be, the next session here will be at 2:30, and you can continue having these discussions with these amazing panelists who will be available for some more time. So you can continue the conversations, continue the charcha as you have lunch, and you can come back here at 2:30 for the next session at Silver Oak.